Good evening, 49er faithful. Welcome to another live episode of the 49ers Mailbag, one of my favorite shows to do. I absolutely love the fact that we get previously submitted questions in here. It gives me a little bit of time to think about topics that may not be something that would have occurred to me, right? You guys throw out the topics. I get to go back, do a little bit of research on the previously submitted questions, put those out, but at the same time, I get to interact with those that are here live in the chat. For those of you that are already here, I appreciate it. I appreciate all of you and the enthusiasm putting in the active chat here because it becomes a bit of a dialogue. For anyone that is new to the mailbag, that's the way in which this works. I alternate between previously submitted questions, which come into me via Twitter or via 49ers mailbag at gmail.com. Those are going to be the more well thought out answers. I do a little bit of research for each one, and I will go through those one by one, but I'll be bouncing back and forth to the chat. And in the chat, those of you that are here live, you just put in your questions however you see fit. As long as you type in the @Rob and @RobShoe before your question so that I know it's directed at me and not just a little bit of back and forth between people in the chat, which oftentimes happens as well because you are spirited 49er faithful, much like myself, and you have something to say and you should say it. And your place to say it is in the dialogue here with me in that chat so that I can bring it to the table and we can talk about it a little bit. I love the fact that we had Raphael 5629er Sneakerhead here on the channel coming in to say what's up to me, to fellow sneakerheads, and everyone here on the channel. E. Kim, also a sneakerhead, coming in to say what's up. The notorious GAV who hooked me up with some phenomenal questions, including the one that is the title of the program, comes in. Rob, you should have asked me for a juice footnote. I think he means like a thumbnail, so I could have put that on. I should have gotten one colored in. Gav's been doing these fantastic pieces of art in support of Kyle Juszczyk until the day he is made captain on the team. So I think today, Gav, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think today was day 69. Much like Rita Oak, Gav is doing the drawings one at a time. And I mean, I think you're about halfway to where Rita is right now. I want to say she's about a day 140 of not trading Jimmy Garoppolo. You're at day 69 of making Juice a captain. And I love the fact that you continue on with it and bring that energy, Gav. I appreciate Russell Peterson coming in, talking about that question that Gav submitted. Dan, Sneakerhead here on the channel coming in to say good evening. JMO Niner coming in to say what's up. My man, Rob, I hope you're having a blessed day, player. I hope you are as well. Definitely enjoying the day so far. JMO, I'm going to get to your question in just one moment. Just coming through to say what's up to everybody who's in the chat. Jamie Bryant is in there. Eric Schultz comes in first to say first. Not first, but first to say first. That's important. That's important. Chris Royal, Sneakerhead here on the channel. Gotta watch my boy Rob, even on vacation. I hope you are enjoying Astoria, Chris. It is, I mean, great weather here in Portland. Hopefully that has extended to the coast as well. Queen Token coming in. Love your camera quality. Appreciate that. You know I appreciate that. I got to keep it crispy on this end. Kevin, Sneakerhead here on the channel coming in to say, hey, all. We've got Nacho Libre in the building saying what's up. Pedro Gonzalez coming in to say hello to everybody. All right, I'm going to start off with JMO Niner because it's right here in front of me. So I am going to get this one, a question, a live question, and then we're getting to Thomas Ells, the first of the previously submitted questions. Got a couple from Gav. Again, stick around for the previously submitted ones. If you have a question and you're here in the chat, much like JMO Niner, hit me with @Rob before the start of your question. And do me a favor, punch that little like button down there if you're here in the chat as well. Steve O Supremo coming in to say what's up. All right, so JMO Niner asked this. Rob, hey, brother, out of the 32 teams in the NFL, what do you rank our Niners defense? I'd have to say I would put them at top 3. What's your opinion? I mean, this is obviously speculation at this point. We're looking at defenses on paper. But JMO Niner, I have been using that exact language myself. I have been indicating on paper, this defense shakes out to me to be a top 3 defense. I do see the Niners. I have predicted my big, bold prediction around sack totals that the 49ers will unseat the Pittsburgh Steelers, who were the unquestioned sack leaders for the last 3 years and were tied for first 4 years ago. I see the Niners unseating the Steelers, and I believe I predicted the 49ers would take home 57 sacks on the year. And I had someone question me saying, hey, besides Nick Bosa, who else is going to rack up these sacks? It is the 6 other quality bookend defensive ends that I think are going to potentially rack up those sacks. Certainly, Eric Armstead is going to have a few sacks in there. I would predict that Javon Kinlaw is going to have a phenomenal season relative to his previous seasons. I would also see Samson Ebukam, Charles Omenihu, Kamiko Toure, Drake Jackson, like all of those guys could be in that 8 sack range. You start adding those up 8 at a time, and it gets to 57 pretty quick. I mean, it doesn't actually divide evenly into 57, but 56 it does, right? All it takes is 7 guys racking up 8 sacks. Boom, you're at 56. I think that we can do that. I absolutely think we can do that. And I would see an increase in turnovers this year as well. With that phenomenal pass rush, with the upgrade at cornerback, I'm seeing some turnovers this season. That has been a frustrating lack of for the 49ers up to this point. Now I see them turning the corner. This defense with DeMeco Ryans in his second year is going to be elite. Yes, I am saying top 3. I'm with you. Top 3. JMO Niner, also in Oregon. Rob, beautiful weather in Oregon today. Amen. Let's go. Chris Royal, top 3 to 5 easy. Weather is fantastic in Astoria. Yes. Top 3 to 5 easy. That's what I'm, not stop 3 to 5. Top. Yes. Chris comes back in to correct that. Top 3 to 5. I think you're right about that. I think you are right about that. Steve-O Supremo, I'm going to come to your question in just a moment, and George as well. I'll be getting to that. George, you see? I got it. Yes, I appreciate the correction last week, George. Absolutely. You know what's funny? My father does watch this show on occasion. In particular, he seems to like the mailbag episode. He got a kick out of that interaction between you and I, George. So I just wanted to give you that little shout out right there because it came up more than once, not just on the program, but afterwards as well. And that triggered the old memory there, George. All right. Here is the previously submitted question from Thomas L. Now, again, I will always say this, that some of the previously submitted questions, come in a little long, right? They come in via email. People like to give a little backstory. So I have to shorten it for what goes on the screen. So I'm going to first read out what I put on the screen, which is an abbreviated version. Then I'm going to read out Thomas's entire question. So here it is. My biggest worry is who is going to replace DJ Jones. You know that means that we have to put up the barbecue sauce. Yes, it's expired now. It is purely a prop at this point, and it's well worth it. Because anytime DJ Jones comes up, you know we got to talk about the barbecue sauce. I'm sure he has a Denver Broncos themed barbecue sauce now. No, wait. Why am I assigning him to the Denver Broncos? Didn't DJ end up with the Jets? I'm sure he has a New York Jets themed barbecue sauce. All right, so here's Thomas's entire question. I'm going to read it out. Wait, I didn't finish reading the one that was on the screen. He says, my biggest worry is who's going to replace DJ Jones. There's a lot of linemen on the team, but none seem to be space eaters. Jones wasn't tall, but he was wide and explosive. All right, here's the entirety of it. Hello, Rob. Thomas L. here again. I was looking at the roster over the weekend and catching up on some videos and articles. Lots of people are worried about nickel, center, and safety opposite of Jimmy Ward. Who would have thought the gimme tart dropped in the who would have caught the gimme tart dropped in the NFC Championship game? My biggest worry is who's going to replace DJ Jones. There's a lot of linemen on the team, but none seem to be space eaters. Jones wasn't tall, but he was wide and explosive. How will we attack this? Is Kinlaw the next man up? Are we expecting Warner, Aziz, and Kinlaw to have a huge impact? Or will, I think that was Dre Greenlaw, expecting Warner, Dre Greenlaw, and Aziz to have a huge impact? Or will we become a more blitz-oriented team to fill the void? Love to hear your thoughts. Keep cranking out the content. Hashtag free Rob Shoe. Thomas L. I mean, I love the free Rob Shoe hashtag. We got to get that trending. I don't know what I'm free from, but free nonetheless. So I think this is going to have to be a platoon effort here, Thomas. I don't think there's one man that's going to replace DJ Jones. There are a couple of 300-pounders on the roster that could combine to replace him. DJ was a shorter, stockier 305 pounds. He was 6 feet tall, 305 pounds. And from the looks of him, I mean, maybe that was a little light. You know, when you look at the barbecue sauce, when you look at that girth, that man may have been a little heavier than 305 at a playing weight, but he was fast too. So 305 maybe seems right. The sneaky one here to me is the one that's probably not going to start on the 53-man roster, but it's going to be on one of our reserve lists. Kalia Davis, the rookie that we selected in the 6th round. Sorry. I think we're going to sneak him on the PUP list. Could be a late season reserve. He comes in at 6'2", 310 pounds. There are a couple of guys that will play defensive tackle, but won't have the run stuffing ability of DJ Jones. Kevin Givens, Maurice Hurst. They don't quite have the girth required to be that stout run stopper that DJ was. The platoon, in my mind, is made up of the newly transformed Javon Kinlaw and newly acquired Hassan Ridgeway. Between those two, I believe that's what the 49ers are looking to have fill the void of DJ Jones. Javon has the length, but he's taller. He's 6'5". That makes it tough for him to get the leverage required to really be an elite run stopper. Those offensive linemen, the guards can get a little bit lower than him in trying to stand his ground. That's really tough to do when you're taller, much like Eric Armstead has struggled in that. But his length does allow him to grab multiple defenders and eat up those double teams. That would allow the linebackers to make those tackles. So if it's a team effort in there, that absolutely works. He also has the length and the strength in his newly transformed body to grab those runners on their way through the holes, much like you would see Eric Armstead. Again, a little bit taller, strong dude, very strong dude, but lean and tall. The closest in stature to DJ Jones is the newly acquired Hassan Ridgeway. He was a role player, a rotational guy on the Eagles' 9th ranked rushing defense last year. He's listed as basically the same weight as DJ Jones. He is listed as the same weight, basically the same stats, 6'1", 305. So just an inch taller. I do see Ridgeway as a key addition in shoring up the run game. It'll certainly be Javon Kinlaw along with Eric Armstead as the starters on early downs, but that rotation of Hassan Ridgeway, I think, will help fill that gap. Excuse me. Pardon me. All right, getting back into your comments, the ones live here in the chat. I appreciate all of you with the enthusiasm. All right, Steve-O Supremo said I'd get back to it. Well, man of my word, Steve-O. Rob, who do we trade a linebacker for or position? Who do we trade a linebacker for? Well, I mean, I have had on my mind Dre Greenlaw for a while. Once the draft passed, it seemed less likely that the 49ers would deal away Dre Greenlaw. But you have a backlog at that position. You have Fred Warner and Azeez as your starters. Dre Greenlaw is going to play that third linebacker spot when that comes on the field. But that's a very limited position for the 49ers defense, or at least historically has been. So few snaps for Dre Greenlaw. You have to question, what sort of a value are we getting there? We have some very capable backups behind him, not at Dre Greenlaw's level, but Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles is a core special teamer and a capable backup linebacker. Oren Burks, a stud special teamer, and apparently also a good backup linebacker. So you have depth at the position. Both Dre Greenlaw and Azeez have expiring contracts at the end of the year. You'd like to get value for whichever one of those you do not plan to bring back. So I do still see it as a possibility of trading Dre Greenlaw, although I have to agree with those that say it's less likely to happen now that we have passed the draft, but still could. George coming in. Rob, what's good, Rob? Watching from a poolside barbecue at our apartments. It's 106 in Sac today. So hope the weather is a little bit better up where you're at. It is. It's like 72 degrees. It is pretty freaking. Let's see exactly what it is here. Let's see what it is in Portland, Oregon, because it was 70 earlier. I mean, it's nice. It's very sunny. It is pleasant. Ooh, is it cranking up a little bit? It is 80 now. Ooh, it's 80. That'll feel warm outside. I'm going out. It's the summer solstice today. For those that don't know, June 21st, summer solstice. It will not get dark here. Actually, the sun won't even set until 9:03 p.m. here in Portland. So after this show, I'm absolutely going out for a nice long walk. Just going to enjoy sunshine between 6 and 9 p.m. That is a phenomenal evening. For those of you that celebrate the summer solstice, happy summer solstice to you. It will not get to 106. When it gets to 106 here in Portland, because of the humidity, it is unbearable. It very rarely gets that high, but it can, and it is crazy. I spent a lot of time going to school out in Stockton, California. That dry heat is just a little more tolerable, but once you're up past 100, 105, I remember when it was 117 one summer in Stockton. I don't care if there's humidity or no humidity. 110 plus is freaking hot, man. You are melting. So George, stay cool, stay inside, stay by the pool. That's a good one. Russell coming in and say, Rob, your video is actually blurry. I don't believe it. Maybe it's the internet connection. It feels good on my end. Give me some feedback, chat. Tell me if it's blurry for everybody, or maybe Russell's just having a rough internet day. Could be. It is. He is a Bronco. Why did I think Jets from, Laken Tomlinson? Yes, he is in fact a Bronco. This is going back to the DJ Jones reference. DJ Jones and K'Wan Williams both ended up with the Broncos. I had a little bit of a brain fart for a moment, but everyone came back in to remind me, and I appreciate it. Thank you all. All right, Tom Jensen coming in. Rob, top 3 to 5 defense, definitely. Top 5 in turnovers, not seeing that. They haven't added ball skills. It's a fair point, and something that Tom and I spoke about throughout the offseason. Many of the players that we both coveted in the draft, I think we had a couple of different targets in there, but both of us did want to bring in a ball hawk for the 49ers. And it's a very fair point that Tom brings up here, that they have not done that. It is wishful thinking on my part that it will be such a dominant defense. It will force opposing quarterbacks into errant throws, and that will show in an increase in interceptions, even though it's not from players who are, in fact, ball hawks. But again, that is a bit of wishful thinking on my part. I think Tom brings in the logic here, which is, hey, you want to see an uptick in interceptions? You better bring in some people who are capable of picking the ball off. And it doesn't seem that the 49ers have done it. George coming in. Rob, tell your appreciated Papa Shoe, I love it. Tell Papa Shoe I appreciate it. I certainly will, George. He may see it. He may see your appreciation firsthand. All right, looking for... Ooh, interesting. Oh, I see. I was looking at the blurry thing, but Keontae comes in with the astute observation. It is blurry. Everything is blurry besides the direct center of the screen where your face is at. That is what we call a bokeh. That is a nice bokeh behind me where I'm in focus. Everything behind me is out of focus. That's what we're looking for. Darren coming in. Rob, it's not blurry. It's crystal clear. I appreciate everybody coming in to show me it is okay. Daniel coming in. Rob, stop bragging about that weather. Sacramento is unbearable right now. Daniel, you have my deepest sympathies for that. All that time that I spent in Stockton, number one, the heat got me. I also, you might hear it right now, I have a little bit of my seasonal allergies. Like I'm just a little stuffy. You know what I mean? Like I don't have a drip or anything going on. In Stockton, in the central California with all those grasses, that's what I'm allergic to, is grass pollen. It ruined me. Absolutely ruined. There were like weeks out of the year where I couldn't function. I was just sneezing, red eyes, just couldn't deal. Thankfully, where I'm at, it is far less worrisome in that regard. But I will stop mentioning the nice temperature here. That's the last time I'm bringing it in. All right, bringing in Robert Davis. Rob, great name, by the way. I agree, Robert. Great name. I remember your first broadcast from Hawaii. Do you think with the improvements the team has made, it will allow them to have more wins than last year? I do. I have predicted the 49ers at 11-6. I don't know why I wanted to add an extra game to make it an 18-game season. 11-6 this year, which would be one more win than they had last year. And I believe I'm being conservative in that prediction. I went through that very prediction with Jack Hammer. He ended up with a couple more wins. And you know Jack, he's a very reasonable dude. So I see 11 as more of that floor. If it's below 11, significantly below 11, I will be disappointed, admittedly. I think 11 is a safe bet. 11? Yes. Carlos, Rob, after the Niners release Jimmy G, will they try to sign Treader or any other free agent? I do have a free agent question coming up here, who my favorite is that's still out there. I don't think that we're going to see JC Treader signed unless there's some, in camp, something happens, or you see Daniel Brunskill and Jake Brendel really struggling. Potentially you see it. I don't think we'll see, barring injuries, I don't think we'll see the 49ers bring in any more free agents until the season starts. That is my prediction. The notorious GAV, Rob Shue, had to take a call, just got back. Rita Oak is exactly 70 days ahead of me. I got a poll going asking whose project will finish first, Jimmy Traded or Captain Juice. Thoughts? That's a tough one. I think, I can't remember when captains are announced, but it'll be close to the season. So my guess is that Rita gets to complete her work before you do. You're going to catch up. You're going to be fewer than 70 days behind her when all is said and done. What I want to know from you, Gav, is are there any regrets? Is it difficult to come up with new content in that regard every single day? Or are you just having fun with it? It seems like you're having fun with it. I'm here for it either way. All right, looking for a couple more of these. I will jump into the previously submitted questions and then come back into the chat in just a moment. Okay, fantastic. When I come back into the chat, it looks like I am going to start with George. Love it. George, I will be right back to your question in just a moment. This one came in from the notorious GAV, who is just back from that phone call. This is the title of the program. Who has more yards receiving this year, Ross Dwelley or Juice? If you predict Juice, should he be tight end 3? Notorious GAV. Gavin, here is my bold prediction. Juice has more receiving yards than both tight end 2 and tight end 3 combined. I want to call that a bold prediction, Gab, but it really isn't. If you go back and look at the 2021 stats, Kittle amassed 94 catches for 910 yards, balling out. Kittle's going to have a 1,000-yard receiving season. I have already predicted that. Juice, 38 catches, 296 yards. The two tight ends beyond that, Warner and Dwelley, combined for 11 catches, 103 yards. 11 catches and 103 yards. Warner had 6 for 52. Dwelley had 5 for 51. It was basically the Dwelley show for the first half of the season, and then it seemed Warner had earned that tight end 2 position for the second half. I mean, Juice almost tripled the output of both Warner and Dwelley combined. Juice definitely earns his money as a fullback. I think he will stay as the fullback, but he will continue to dominate as the actual tight end too. I mean, he moves around all over the formation. He will catch more passes than both of them combined, whomever tight end 2 and tight end 3 end up being. And it is as it should be. I mean, Juice is a phenomenal athlete. I want the ball in his hands as much as possible. It feels like he's underutilized, even though he has those statistics from last year. Bringing in E. Kim here. I love these kind of questions. With the away game experiences that you've had, which ones have been the most enjoyable and memorable? I'm bringing in 2 on this one. I'm going 2 different routes for this, E. Kim. The first one is the best game day experience based solely on the opposing fan interaction. What fans are the nicest in the NFL? The second way I'm going to go about this, and it will be a different team, a different city, is the second way is going to be my favorite city, the best away game experience in its totality. So for best fans, for the longest time, the Carolina Panther fans held that title. I sat with some of the most pleasant individuals there for the 2012 postseason against Carolina in Carolina. The fans were polite, friendly, and sociable. They absolutely held that title for best fans. And the fact that the next week, I think you remember, we went from Carolina up to Seattle. So for the fact that I went out to Seattle for that NFC Championship game and was greeted by, in my very humble opinion, the worst fans in the NFL, the Seattle Seahawks fans, nothing worse than them. It compared and contrasted the two. So I had the Carolina fans who treated me very well and were very friendly, even though they lost, and the Seattle fans that treated me horrible in a victory and treated our players like trash as well in that one. So definitely was leaning towards Carolina. But now, after this past season, after the visit to Lambeau Field, we've got a new winner for best fans. There's just no doubt in my mind. They greeted me, they welcomed me, they wished me good luck, and they remained friendly even when the game went sideways on them at the end. I mean, could you imagine losing in that game the way in which Green Bay did in the snow with a blocked freaking punt? It was wild. After that visit to Lambeau, sitting next to people whose families own the seats since Lambeau opened, just a phenomenal experience. I got to give it to the fans at Lambeau Field. Green Bay Packer fans, I thought they were annoying at opposing stadiums. When I see them travel with their cheeseheads, I will admit I find them to be rather aggravating in that regard. But when in their abode, when going out to Wisconsin, they were some welcoming freaking people, and I appreciate that. I am here for that. Cheers to any opposing fans that welcome opposing fans into their stadium. It's the way it should be. It's the way we should be at Levi's. If you go to regular games for the 49ers at Levi Stadium, take a tip from me. Be kind to the people that are coming in from out of town. They're good people. They just want to watch football. Hopefully they don't talk too much trash, and you can be kind to them without feeling bad about it. Now, here's my vote for favorite city and favorite away game that comes to mind. The caveat is that, maybe I'm forgetting something. I have a poor memory. But New Orleans in 2019, the city is always elite. Great food, phenomenal people watching, and it's super fun to walk through the French Quarter smoking a stogie, right? Just going through, seeing all the drunk people, watching them do their mayhem. The game in 2019, I do love a good defensive matchup. I love a low-scoring affair with incredible hitting. I get behind that. But there's something about a shootout like that game in 2019. Again, there were great fans in the stands. They were very friendly, but they were a little bit rambunctious, and it did feel good to get that win against them. The Niners fans that were there on the sideline with me lost it in celebration, and I always appreciate that jubilation that takes over. People can't help themselves. They're high-fiving random strangers. They're giving out hugs. There's celebration. The eye contact that you get with people is just like this shared experience as a wave of relief comes over you after a big win like that, especially one that happens in the waning moments of the game. Something super special about that, in my opinion. All right, I'm getting to the next question, previously submitted, in just a moment, but I'm coming back into the chat to deal with those questions first and foremost. I absolutely appreciate. Look at this, 916 49er. Rob Shue, I'm about to eat 49 tacos. It should be 49 is the right freaking number there, 916 49er. That I will warn you, though, in that heat, I'm guessing you're in the 916. After eating 49 tacos, that heat's going to feel a little bit rougher. George coming back in. Rob Shue. Have to know how to pronounce your own name. That is key. Do you plan on hitting any home Niner games? Me and my girlfriend want to get a pic with you. George, this particular season, I don't. What I will say is when the 49ers make the playoffs and host a home playoff game, I will go to that playoff game. Someone invited me to the Bucs game, so maybe I will end up at the Bucs game. And if I am, I will definitely be happy to meet up, say hello, chop it up, get a picture. I love interacting with fellow Niner faithful. But as of right now, no immediate plans. I am going to 4 road games. So if you also are thinking of going some road games, throw them my way, and we'll see if any of those align. Robert coming in, nice coffee mug. Appreciate that. I enjoy it. Cheers. We have the notorious GAV, Rob Shue. It was tough at first, but I had a lot of help from Evs until I got my editing skills up. Talking about doing the pictures every day until Juice gets made captain. He says, now I'm having a blast making the pics myself, and it's a lot of fun. Ev Days helping out. Ev, you're the man. Ev is absolutely the man, as is Gab. Steve Osprimo, Rob, name the order of most player touchdowns to least this season. That's a tough one, man. Give me a moment. Steve Osupremo, let me come back to that one. I mean, if I'm off the top of my head, at the top have to be players like Debo, Kittle, Elijah Mitchell, and TDP. Like those four would be my pick for the four most. Brandon Ayuk, I would say would be trailing that ever so slightly, but I feel like those four are going to be in the mix. I have to place Debo first, then one of the backs. TDP is the bigger of the two, so could get those goal line carries. So I'm going to go Debo, TDP, Elijah Mitchell, George Kittle. Those are my top four. Boom. Book it. Take it to the sports book and lay down those bets now. All right, Notorious GAV. Rob Shoot. Juice was the fourth best receiver on the team last year, right? Yes, he was. It seems like a reasonable take, not a hot take, in my opinion. It is not a hot take at all. It's a very reasonable take. That was a highly sarcastic big shot, a big prediction, big bold prediction. Chris Royal with the super chat coming in. Forget that, Rob. We barely get nice weather in Oregon. Rub that crap in. This is in reference to the, hey, don't rub it in about the Oregon weather. It's true. We get a small percentage of those ideal days that those of you in California do get. So we do have to rub it in. But the other, we got to keep it a secret, Chris. We can't tell anyone how nice it is to live in Oregon, because then everybody just moves up from California and our cost of living goes up. And that's just unacceptable. Completely unacceptable to have our cost of living going up, even though I moved from California up here and was one of those people that caused cost of living to go up. But I did it way back in 2013. All right, George, Rob Shoe, man, you brought back some good memories from that 2012 Panthers game where Cap did the Cam Newton Superman celebration, then kissed the bicep. Yes, he did. That was a fun game, man. I feel like Bowman had some big plays in that one. Oh, good freaking matchup on that one. Good game. All right, getting back into the previously submitted questions here. This one is coming in from Gavin. Look at that. We got in multiple from Gav, and I loved them. So they all made it. Gav, I appreciate you. Predict Elijah Mitchell's stats for this season. All right, I'm looking at this more of a three-headed attack, similar to 2019. So I've got the three players that are in that three-headed monster as TDP, Mitchell, and Sermon, all of them making an impact, much like Mostert, Breida, and Coleman did back in 2019. I would expect some injuries, some missed games, but towards the end of the year, my wager is that all three of these are reasonably close in statistics, both in carries and in total yards. Mitchell in 2020 ended up with 207 carries for 963 yards. That was at 4.7 yards a pop. Back in 2019, it was far more evenly distributed. You had Mostert at 137 carries for 772 yards, Breida 123 carries for 623 yards, and Coleman also 137 carries for 544 yards. Those lead me to believe that I'm in expectation of a lower number of carries for Mitchell, which would be a benefit in keeping him fresh towards the end of the year. I also believe there will be fewer rushing yards in total as well. I'm going to take a wild stab at this, Gav, and say 168 carries for 773 yards, a slight downtick in yards per carry. He was at 4.7 in 2021. I'm going down to 4.6 yards per carry in 2022. And again, I see those other backs being right around the 150 carries a pop as well. You have to take into account that there is one additional game played, so 17 total as compared to the 16 played in 2019. But I do see a balanced rushing attack. Now the question comes in from Rohan. Rohan saying, which running backs do you think make the 53-man roster? I got some absolute locks. The absolute locks are TDP, has to be a lock given his draft status, and Elijah Mitchell. Absolute lock based on the fact that he was the leading freaking rusher in 2021. Trey Sermon, I'm listing as a lock, but not an absolute lock. It feels like it needs to be a lock based on draft status the year prior. But admittedly, if he has a bad camp or if other players really excel, you could see a situation, much like the Joe Williams situation, although that was different, where the 49ers move on from an early draft pick way early in his career. I don't think that's going to happen. That's not what I'm predicting will happen. I see it as a three-headed attack, and Sermon is one of those three. But I just admit I'm calling him a lock, and he probably isn't a lock. Between Jeff Wilson Jr. and Jordan Mason, I see those guys as vying for that fourth spot. Juice is going to be there as the fullback. I see the 49ers carrying 5 running backs, Juice being one of them, the other 3 that I listed. Now you have one spot left. I see it between Jeff Wilson Jr. and Jordan Mason. If the roster were set today, it would be Jeff Wilson Jr. He is the more complete back. I believe he has the higher floor, but also the lower potential ceiling. And that's what the question becomes. Do you want a higher floor or do you want a higher potential ceiling? With the way in which the 49ers have built this particular roster and the youth movement that seems to be taking place out of necessity in some positions, a higher risk, higher reward player might be the correct move. For now, it's Jeff Wilson Jr. But if the pads go on and Jordan Mason still looks like a breakout candidate as Jack Hammer has described him to this point in those practices he's attended, then I'm going the rookie route because of that higher upside. I love it. All right, the next one's another favorite for me. It is a favorite memory. I'm going to get back to that previously submitted question in just a moment. Right now, I'm getting back into your comments here live in the chat. Looking for the @Rob Shoe. Here we go. I can't have it both ways here. USMC Niners for Life is making me choose. Rob, you can't have it both ways, sir. If you have a back to run the goal line, then you have to drop Debo back to his average six touchdowns per season. He can't be number one. That's a really great point. If you take away those rushing touchdowns, you probably do take Debo back towards his median, his mean average. I still think he'll break a couple of big ones on the runs. I mean, we saw him do it last season. So I'd probably put him more in the 8 to 9 touchdown range, but that may put TDP above him. If TDP can rack up 10, maybe I move TDP to 1, Debo to 2, Elijah Mitchell to 3, George Kittle to 4. Let me know if you like that one a little bit better. I really appreciate your logic. I think that is solid, and it's a very fair critique of the logic I used in putting Debo as number one. So I love that. I love it when I'm questioned, and questioned well, as I was just there. Chris Royal coming in with the super chat. Very possible we have 2,000-yard running backs. That would be phenomenal. That would be phenomenal. I can't even think of the last time that has happened. We need to look that up. We need to find out if that is something that happened recently. Joey Nichols, you made me smile here. Not an absolute lock, so not a lock then, LOL. Yes, that would be correct. Me trying to say a lock, but not really a lock. That is the definition of hedging your bet, Joey, in calling it a lock and then implying it's not so much of a lock, but we're going to label it as a lock. Yeah, Joey also calling me out here. I'm getting called left and right, and I'm here for it, because I need to admit when I'm wrong. And in these two cases, I very much have to admit that I was wrong. So yeah, not a lock on Trey Sermon, but a sure thing, almost a sure thing. So not a sure thing. Joey, I appreciate you. Cameron Blake coming in. Rob Shoe, you're the man. Thank you, Cameron. Hope to cross paths in Denver. Will Debo have another magical year without the running back usage? At the first half of the season, he was on track to be right there with Cooper Kupp as a receiver. I'm hesitant to say he can match that ferocity early on, because he's now got to create that tandem with Lance instead of with Jimmy. I mean, for all the criticism of Jimmy Garoppolo, certainly hitting Debo over the middle of the field was well within his wheelhouse. That led to a lot of yak for Debo. Is that going to be the case here? Without the running back usage, is he really going to have a phenomenal statistical season? I think it will be a good statistical season. I have predicted that he will not lead the team in receiving yards, that it will actually be Brandon Ayuk and George Kittle ahead of Debo in receiving yards, but that Debo in total yards from scrimmage will lead the team. So magical to some degree, yes. As glorious as 2021, I don't think so. Very few players are able to put those types of seasons together back to back, because it's just so hard to do. It's difficult on the body, first and foremost. So no, I don't think he will. Thomas Luttrell coming in. Rob Shue. Who would you take over? Would you take the over or the under for 50-yard touchdowns for Danny Gray at 3.5? Okay, over under on Danny Gray, 50+ yard touchdowns, 3.5. So is Danny Gray going to have 3 or fewer, or is he going to have 4 or more? Oh, Thomas. I feel like Ray could have a couple of those, even though he's not the wheels guy, right? Clearly that's Danny Gray. I'm going to say he has 3. That's a lot in a season, 3 50+ yard touchdowns. So I'm taking the under on this. I'm taking the under, still feeling like I'm being optimistic, but I'm saying under on that. I'm interested to hear what others think, whether there are other unders or overs, or what the feeling is on that. I want to know. I want to know what your opinions are on that. Look at that. Raphael 5629ers is doing the Google work here. Only 5 running back duos in NFL history have had 1,000 yards or more rushing. With 5 duos where they both have 1,000-yard rushing, that is pretty phenomenal. So could the 49ers become the 6th team with running backs both getting over 1,000 yards? TDP and Elijah Mitchell? Maybe. Look at this. Further information. Brandon Jacobs and Derek Ward of the Giants were the 5th duo to accomplish the feat in 2008. Love it. Victor saying 2009, Carolina had D'Angelo Williams and Jonathan Stewart rush over 1,000. We need to check this out. We've got competing information here. We're going to have to dig in deeper. Ooh, Notorious GAV. Rob Shute. Jawan Jennings doesn't make your list of total touchdowns? That's tough. No, I don't think Jawan Jennings can repeat that statistical anomaly that he had last year of catching touchdown passes and first downs almost exclusively. Like, that's all he caught. Every time he had a catch, it was like, oh, that was a first down on a key third down, or that was a touchdown in the red zone. I struggle to think that would happen again. So I think we'll see a downtick in touchdowns for Jawan Jennings, an uptick in yardage for him, but a downtick. And we've got Raphael admitting that, yes, Victor is correct. So now we have another pairing. So maybe there are 6 pairings that have happened, or maybe they were one of the 5. Anyway, there are very few running backs that have both on the same team rush for 1,000 yards. Maybe the Niners can join that list. All right, this is going back to the previously submitted questions here. Raphael coming in on this one. Raphael, appreciate you here. Rob's favorite Levi's memory. All right, I was really tempted to pick the Packers playoff game in 2019. I mean, that was a phenomenal game. Always love watching Aaron Rodgers lose. It was an important game, but even with that importance, I do prefer a bit of a nail biter. I like the suspense of a last-minute victory. Talked about that earlier when referencing the Saints game in 2019. So that game against the Packers in the playoffs was very special. I will always remember spending that game with my brother and his wife, but it's an earlier game in 2019 that I'm picking. And this game that I'm picking was a bit of a hot mess. The Pittsburgh Steelers. What did we have? 5 turnovers into that game? In that game, I went to that game with my best friend and his eldest daughter. It was her very first NFL game, and they are both Steelers fans. Well, really, he's a Steelers fan, and I think Heidi just likes watching her dad get excited when the Steelers win. I can't blame her. I mean, you know, what good child doesn't enjoy watching their parents' team win, seeing them get excited? It was a phenomenal game day experience. 2 kind 49ers fans who were leaving the field offered me their 2 field passes just out of the kindness of their heart. They were done with the on-field experience and they wanted to share it with someone else. I very happily passed those along to Mark and Heidi so that they could go down on the field. I've been fortunate enough to already had stepped foot on the grass at Levi's and the special time where I was on the grass at Candlestick Park that I shared on Jack's program yesterday. But after getting down there, they met Jerry Rice. That was phenomenal. I've got a distance picture of them in the same proximity to Jerry Rice. I was thrilled. And then I see them taking a picture with Ryan Shazier, which was just an uplifting story, one that Mark and Heidi, I'm sure, will remember for the rest of their days. I mean, Mark is a diehard Steelers fan, and obviously Ryan Shazier's story is a very inspiring one. To see him back out there on the field, even for someone who's not a Steelers fan, has some significant to me. But I can only imagine what that meant in specific to Mark. And I'm sure he passed along that meaning to Heidi as well. It was awesome to really be a part of that. And then, most importantly, after giving them that spectacular pregame experience, we gave them a horrific postgame experience by whooping them in the last seconds. The 49ers grabbed that last second freaking victory, broke their hearts, as it should be. I'm sorry that I'm taking some joy in that, but it was a 49ers victory, and I lost my stuff. My memory of the end of that game is the sounds and relief that came out of my mouth and Mark laughing at me. Also a little bit sad as his team had just lost. But a last-second victory to Dante Pettis, no less. I mean, it's just too bad that wasn't the turnaround to his career with the Niners, but it was a moment wherein we got to celebrate Dante having a glorious catch to win a game against the Steelers. That was a phenomenal game within a phenomenal season. All right, coming back over to look at the live questions before I get back into some of the last questions that came in today, and we wrap it up here. Uh-oh. Gav, what, you bringing me down here? Unbelievable, Gav. I'm kidding. I'm giving you a hard time here. Gav comes in. Rob Shue, what's your worst 49er memory that you were there for? Levi's or Candlestick? You choose. Gotta be Levi's. Gotta be Thanksgiving Day against the Seattle Seahawks. Yes, I was there for that fateful game on Thanksgiving where they whooped on us and then ate turkey legs on our frickin' field. It was a great Thanksgiving Day celebration. Was there with some family friends who cooked an entire Thanksgiving feast in the fricking parking lot at Levi's. It was done up. It was glorious. That was spectacular. Thanksgiving was good. The game was terrible. The ending was even worse. I was still traumatized by the NFC Championship game that we lost in Seattle. Wanted redemption, got none of it. That was not fun. Not fun. But I forgive for having me relive that. We've got some positive things to end on, Gav, so don't feel bad. All right, Terry Wright coming in. Rob, week 1, who's the lead running back, lead wide receiver? How many yards does Lance throw for? And do we get the dub? All for fun. Yes, we get the dub. I'm going reverse order. Yes, we get the dub against Chicago. No doubt about it. I'm going to say that Lance balls out a little bit. I'm going to say he throws for 270 yards and 3 touchdowns, 1 pick. 270, 3 TDs, 1 pick. And let's say 58 rushing yards. So over 300 yards from the line of scrimmage. That's a good game by Lance. I'm not going to throw in a rushing touchdown. So 3 touchdowns. It makes me want to add him on my fantasy team. And then lead running back, I'm going to say it starts out yardage-wise as Elijah Mitchell. Touchdowns, I might pick differently, but I'm going yardage. So I'm going Elijah Mitchell leads the team in yards from scrimmage, rushing. Leading wide receiver against Chicago to open the season, George Kittle. I've got him going over 1,000 yards. That means he's going to lead in some of the games, not all, because I have Brandon Ayuk going over 1,000 as well. Debo just shy of 1,000 receiving, but the most yards on the team from the line of scrimmage. So I'm going Elijah Mitchell, most yards rushing. George Kittle, most yards receiving. Lance for 280, 270, right around there. 270, and then 58 yards rushing. That is my fun prediction there. You can't hold me to it. It's just for fun. It's just for fun. Like the notorious GAV here. Like the video, sneakerheads, let's show Rob some love. Just for fun. Schnozzle Shabizzle, I just like saying that name. At Shoe, with all the running backs on the team, who makes the cut? We know Elijah will make the team. Who's number 2 and 3? That was the one I went to earlier. So just in review, I have Elijah Mitchell in there, and 2 and 3 would be TDP and Sermon. I might actually put TDP first. I think Elijah gets the most rushing yards. I think TDP has the most rushing touchdowns. So whatever you want to put is the more important statistical category, that's going to be the leader there. But I believe that Trey Sermon does hit that number 3 role. Too early to give up on him at this point. Terry Wright coming in, just being polite. Just being polite. That is phenomenal. Phenomenal. Ooh. All right. I'll be right back into the chat in just a moment. I see Chris Royal coming in with a phenomenal addition there. Got a couple of previously submitted questions that we're going to wrap out here. This one comes back in from the notorious GAV. We got another one from Gav closing us out. Unfortunately, it's a short one, but how much of a leap do you predict Hufanga making going into year 2 of his NFL career? I see this as a big one. I'm not going to make any bold statistical predictions about Talanoa Hufanga, but I get the sense that he's going to prove he belongs as a starter in the NFL. And the Niners seem to be gambling a fair amount on him taking that next step. So I don't have any reason for believing that he will take that next step other than the 49ers' confidence in him. It is that confidence that's rubbed off on me, making me more optimistic about Talanoa Hufanga because the 49ers did not bring in much camp competition for him. You could argue George Odom was a reasonable amount of camp competition, but with only 7 or 8 starts under his belt, it's not an experienced veteran that you're bringing in to compete with Talanoa Hufanga. And the language used by all of the coaches seem to indicate that they really value and view Talanoa Hufanga as the one most likely to grab that spot. This will be one of the players and positional camp battles I will have my eye on the closest. All right, this one comes in from Fly Low. Love it. Hey, Rob, who's the one player you want the 49ers to sign now? So that, to me, indicated that needs to be an existing free agent. So I went back to the list of best free agents out there, and I know that this one is an older crush, one that I've talked about before, but I still want OBJ. Call me crazy. Call me crazy if you will. It seems he's not going to sign until he's closer to health. The Niners should know at that point if they are contenders, right? This could be an in-season type of an acquisition that is made. Feels like a great addition with the freed up Jimmy G money once he is traded or released. You push for the playoffs and beyond. That one, again, feels like the type of move that the 49ers might make. I think they're done with free agent acquisitions prior to the start of the season. Once they have discovered what they have in Lance, once they have confirmed what they believe they've discovered in Lance, once they know that they are playoff contenders, I would not be at all surprised with pushing more chips into the middle of the table. How do you go about doing that? Well, it's either going to be an in-season trade of sorts or an in-season acquisition. OBJ feels like one of the players, one of the best players that would be out there available for that in-season acquisition. So I am landing on OBJ as my preference. All right, this is the last one coming in from the notorious GAV. Then I'm closing out the show in the comments with all of you. This one's about soccer. Of course it is, because Gav's across the pond there. He says, are you going to attend any of the 2026 World Cup games that are going to be hosted in Levi's? It's a short answer, Gav. It is. I am not going to be attending any of those games. The closest I think I'll ever get to that experience of the World Cup games is the experience that I had in the summer of 1994 when I was right across the street from Stanford Stadium working at a pizza joint, beholding the madness that unfolded in the Town and Country Village in Palo Alto, California. It had a little market in there that I had never seen carry so many suitcases of Bud Light. Those suitcases of Bud Light were quickly sold out. And by the end of it, when it was down to Brazil was one of the last remaining teams, obviously, the Brazilian fans were partying. I mean, on a level that 14, 15-year-old me had never seen before. A level of partying and debauchery that needed to be respected, and I was there for it. I mean, they were partying in Red Boy Pizza. They were partying out in the parking lot. They were driving around. Cops were like, we can't give out DUIs because most of these people aren't U.S. citizens. We're just sending them home. Hopefully they'll be safe. It was madness, chaos. And I'll be honest, as I'm talking about it, it kind of gets me hyped up to go to one of the games. Here's the deal, Gab. If you find your way over here to go to one of those games, I will meet you there and go to that game with you. So if that's on the books, if Gav is thinking about attending a World Cup game, maybe we can make this happen. We got a few years to plan it, though, so no need to get too far ahead of ourselves. All right, coming back into the comments to close out this show. I've had a good one. I have enjoyed myself, as I always do on this program. Chris Royal, sneakerhead here on the channel, currently out in Astoria, enjoying himself on vacay. Rob, with a 17-game schedule, each running back would only need to average 58 yards per game. With as much as we will be pounding the ball to give Lance a laid-back season, I think 2,000-yard runners is possible. That would be phenomenal. I mean, to be a part of a team that rushes for 1,000 yards, two different players, you have to imagine that Lance is going to rush for another 500. I mean, hell, Debo's going to get a couple of hundred in there. You're probably going to get 300 or 400 from another back. This could be a really dominant run game within the San Francisco 49ers. I hope that we see 2,000-yard rushers. I would absolutely love that. Look at this. 420 Savage, we got close. 2003, we've got Hurst had 768 yards rushing. Kevin Barlow went for over 1,000. That was Garrison probably should have gotten a few more carries, although he would have been recovering from his injury at that point. So he was not his glorious self then at that point. Schnozzle Shabizzle coming in. Okay, I'm excited to see TDP in NFL action. Me too. The bowling ball will strike again. Dan, sneakerhead here on the channel. Rob, are you worried Shanahan may bench TDP if he has any early hiccups? He does love to be hard on the rookies. There's no doubt about it, but he seems to take it a little bit lighter on the running backs. Kyle Shanahan has trouble playing rookies right off the bat. It's been something that seems to be true for this team over and over and over again, except at that running back position. So, yes, if there are hiccups, I could see that because of how deep this room is otherwise, but I would still imagine TDP gets a fair number of carries. I do not anticipate he gets basically cut off in the way that Trey Sermon did last year. Notorious GAV. Rob Shue, a lot of my friends are excited about Quantrez Knight. Do you share their same optimism? Not yet. It's too early for me to get super excited about some players that flash early on in OTAs. But again, those are the players that I then put a little asterisk by and keep my eye on them throughout the preseason. Cameron Blake. Rob Shue, Highland Tavern in Denver when you go. Homemade tots and green chili plus a fire burger. Know you love your food. Cameron, that's a phenomenal freaking get right there. Homemade tots and green chili plus a phenomenal burger. I am in. Can I get green chili on my burger, and do I dip the tops in green chili? I'm in no matter what, Cameron, but you have my attention here right now. Very excited for that. Highland Tavern. Mark that one down. Highland Tavern. Love it. Notorious GAV coming in. Got to get it in because the Notorious GAV has had his fingerprints all over this episode. We're still going to get the one that is filmed outside in the Candlestick Park seats. Don't worry about that, Gavin. Just couldn't do it today, but we will, no doubt. Notorious GAV comes in. Soccer rules, Rob Shue. You should go to one of the games to sample a different atmosphere at Levi's. Just a thought. And if Wales qualifies, I'll try my hardest to get out there. It's a date. It's on. If Wales qualifies, Gavin, let's make it happen. Well, I mean, we will get you out here some way, somehow. Chris Royal, Rob, when's the next roundtable? Okay, I'll stop asking now. Thanks for the content, my friend. We will be hitting up that fish and chips place tomorrow. Pretty excited. The Bo Picker is a phenomenal fish and chips place out there in Astoria. And Chris, we absolutely need to get the roundtable going, whether it is during this dead period or whether we wait until we have a little bit more content to deal with. The roundtable is happening, and it is happening as its own show. I love that idea, and Chris brought it to the table. Raphael 5629er sneakerhead here on the channel with the last question of the day. Rob, can the Niners get to a total of 2,500 to 3,000 rushing yards for the season? I mean, just in that simple math that we did earlier there, if we get close to 2,000-yard backs, which is not what I'm predicting, but I would have Elijah Mitchell somewhere in the range of, what did I have him at? 770? Somewhere in that range. Let me get back up into my notes here and say what I had Elijah Mitchell as. I have him as 773. So let's see. If we go roughly 800 for both of the leading backs, so we get to 1,600. Lance takes another 500, so 2,100. I think it's fair to say that Sermon or whomever claims the third running back role gets in the 300 to 400 yard range. That would take us up to 2,500. Add on a couple of hundred yards for Debo, some miscellaneous yards from Juice and from a couple of other players that do a couple of end arounds. Yeah, I think that 2,500 to 3,000 rushing yards for the season is a very reasonable range. I think the Niners might end up right in that particular range. Raphael 562 Niners, yes, the Niners can get to a total of 2,500 to 3,000 rushing yards for the season. Thank you for the question. Notorious GAV, with just a side note here, roundtable, please explain quickly before you go. The roundtable happened naturally on the Sneakerhead call-in program where Sneakerheads were calling in, and then a couple of them stuck around until the end, and we brought in myself and 3 Sneakerheads and would go topic by topic and have a little roundtable discussion. So it's all Sneakerheads. It is, based off of what do people want to talk about in that moment. And it will basically just become its own show because I enjoy doing it. In the past, it has definitely most often been with Chris Royal, William Bennett, Sean 951 Niners. That Niner guy has also made some appearances. So we got some regulars in there, all great content contributors. Really enjoy conversing with them. So we'll try to make that happen in the near future. This has been an excellent episode, one of the shorter ones at an hour. That's when you know that you tend to go long on shows. When a short episode is an hour, I am thrilled that all of you are here, being a part of the dialogue, contributing to this mailbag program. Always makes it that much better. The way in which you all interact in the chat is something that I just can't get enough of. I absolutely am here for it. I'm here for it every single week. I will be back on tomorrow between two beards with Randon McMahon at 5 p.m. on this channel. If you want to submit your mailbag questions for next week a little bit early, you're welcome to do so at 49ersmailbag@gmail.com. Thank you to those of you saying goodbye in the chat. Notorious GAV, Raphael 562 Niners, Chris Royal, Schnozzle Shabizzle. I appreciate all of you being here. I will be back tomorrow. I hope you enjoy this beautiful weather wherever you may be, even if it's not so beautiful where you are at. Until tomorrow, cheers, faithful.